You don't just have one brain. You have two. And the second one is currently making decisions without asking your permission. It sits behind your ribs, wrapped around your stomach and intestines, humming with activity right now. You feel it every single day. You just call it something else. A gut feeling. A knot in your stomach before bad news. Butterflies before a first date. You've always assumed these were just figures of speech. But the real answer is far stranger. Your gut has its own nervous system. It's called the enteric nervous system, and it contains somewhere between 200 and 600 million neurons, woven through the lining of your digestive tract like a second spinal cord. That's more neurons than exist in your entire spinal cord. More than in a cat's brain. This isn't a metaphor. It's real neural tissue, capable of sensing, learning, and reacting mostly without ever asking your actual brain for input. The scientist who gave this system its nickname was Michael Gershon, a neuroscientist at Columbia University. In the late 1990s, Gershon spent years mapping the neurons lining the human gut, and he was startled by what he found. This tissue didn't just relay signals, processed them. It could trigger reflexes on its own. In fact, if you severed the connection between the gut and the brain entirely, the enteric nervous system would keep working. Digestion would continue. Muscles would contract in rhythm. The gut, in a very real sense, doesn't need permission to think. So what does it actually do down there, alone, without you? It keeps score. It tracks bacteria, hormones, inflammation, and stress signals constantly. Then it sends that information upward, through one of the longest nerves in the human body. The vagus nerve. And here's where things stop feeling like biology and start feeling like a secret you were never told. Roughly 90% of the fibers in the vagus nerve carry information from the gut to the brain. Only about 10% travel the other way. Your brain is not the one giving most of the orders. It's mostly listening. Think about what that means. Every time you felt a wave of dread before something even happened. Every time your stomach clenched right before you had to make a hard decision. That wasn't your imagination catching up to your emotions. That was your second brain speaking first, and your first brain scrambling to interpret the message. There's more. Roughly 90 to 95% of the serotonin in your entire body isn't made in your brain. It's made in your gut. Serotonin, the same chemical tied to mood, motivation, and emotional regulation, is manufactured almost entirely in the walls of your intestines. Your brain uses a small local supply. Your gut runs its own separate factory. Why would evolution build it this way? Because for most of human history, the gut was under constant threat. Spoiled meat, parasites, bacteria that could kill within days. A slow, centralized brain sending signals across the whole body would react too late. So biology built a fast, local response system right where the danger actually was, one that could sense a threat and act before a conscious thought even had time to form. Your ancestors who felt sudden nausea near rotting food, who felt an unexplainable unease around a particular water source, survived more often than the ones who waited for their brain to reason it out. That unease wasn't reasoning. It was your gut brain doing triage. This is where the story gets even stranger, because this second brain doesn't just react to threats. It talks to your mood, your memory, and even your personality, through the trillions of bacteria living inside it. Emern Mayer, a gastroenterologist and neuroscientist at UCLA, has spent decades studying what's now called the gut-brain axis. His research suggests the relationship runs both directions. Chronic stress can change the bacterial population in your gut. And in turn, that bacterial population can change how anxious or calm you feel, independent of what's actually happening in your life. If that sounds far-fetched, consider what happened in a lab in Cork, Ireland. John Cryan and his research team at University College Cork ran a now-famous set of experiments with mice. They took the gut bacteria from anxious, timid mice and transplanted it into mice that had been raised bold and adventurous. Within weeks, the once bold mice became hesitant, cautious, anxious. Nothing about their brains had changed directly. Their behavior shifted because their gut ecosystem shifted. The signal traveled from the stomach to the personality. Sit with that for a second. A colony of bacteria you can't see, living in an organ you rarely think about, is capable of nudging your temperament. Not through metaphor. Through actual chemical signaling, straight up the vagus nerve, straight into the circuits that shape mood and behavior. So the next time you feel a decision forming before you can explain why, that's not mysticism. That's measurable. Studies on interoception, the sense of what's happening inside your own body, show that people often register a physical gut response to a choice before their conscious brain produces a reason for it. The reasoning comes second. The feeling comes first. Your gut isn't guessing. It's calculating using inputs your conscious mind never even sees, and it's finishing the calculation before you've started deliberating. This explains something almost everyone has felt but rarely questioned. Why a stressful week at work leaves your stomach in knots, even when nothing physically happened to your digestive system. Why anxiety and irritable bowel conditions show up together so often that doctors now treat them as connected, not coincidental. The gut and the mind were never separate systems pretending to be related. They were one extended nervous system, split across two locations, sharing the same emotional signals in real time. And this raises an uncomfortable question about how much of what you call you originates somewhere you never think to look. When you feel a sudden aversion to a person you just met, before you can articulate a single reason why, some part of that reaction may have started in your gut, not your prefrontal cortex. When you feel calm and grounded after a good meal, that's not just blood sugar. It's a live chemical negotiation between bacteria, neurons, and hormones, happening below the threshold of conscious thought. Your personality, your anxiety, your intuition, all of it is being co-authored by an organ you were taught to think of as nothing more than a digestion machine. For most of history, no one knew this was happening. People described gut feelings the way they described luck or fate, a strange, unexplainable nudge from nowhere. Now there's a name for it, a location for it, and a growing body of research documenting exactly how it works. The second brain wasn't a metaphor waiting to be discovered. It was a physical structure hiding in plain sight, doing quiet, constant work while everyone assumed the only brain that mattered was the one behind their eyes. So the next time your stomach tightens before you've even understood why, don't dismiss it as nerves. Don't wave it off as imagination. That sensation is a message from a nervous system with hundreds of millions of neurons, one that evolved specifically to detect danger and shift your mood faster than conscious thought ever could. You don't just have one brain, you have two. And the one in your stomach has been making decisions on your behalf since long before you had the words to notice it.